BRICS nations are emerging economic powerhouses with the potential to reshape the global economic landscape, which is why we support these BRICS, which means Brazil, Russia, India, China, and these big emerging countries, to create alternatives to the current international economic institutions. And so first of all, in my speech, I'll be giving the status quo, the definition, our team stance, our end goal, and then 3 arguments on why we believe that they should create these alternatives. And so, first of all, the status quo. The current international economic institutions include these kind of IMF, World Bank, and etc., have been in place for decades and are nominated by these Western powers. The uneven stage in these dynamics cater the needs for these BRICS to be able to create these alternatives to these economic institutions to actually help these emerging countries to actually reach their goal. And so our definition or our model of these alternative institutions is that we believe that these BRICS new institutions will be working alongside with the existing ones, meaning that they won't be taking over them. That means that they'll be working alongside with them. And so our team stance is that we believe that we support the creation of these alternative institutions that are made by BRICS. And so our end goal is that we believe that we can have much more influence in shaping the global economic policies and better provide these emerging countries a much more positive economic institution. And so our first argument is that promoting equity. Our premise is that these current institutions are Western dominated, leading to unequal power between these two dynamics. And so our first layer is that these BRICS institutions can provide these emerging countries with a much more equitable platform for them to actually grow and develop. We believe that these institutions can address these economic issues to the current society and their circumstances and not by these Western powers. They can be able to solve these unequal trade policies and balancing powers from these Western countries and BRICS themselves. So the impact is that we can promote a much fairer global economic systems. And the opposition side might argue that these BRICS institutions may lead to conflicting with these policies. And as I already said, we'll be working alongside these old institutions, which means that we can actually work together to actually bring a much more fair and developed economic system for the current society. And so opposition side might argue that this will create risks for these economic systems. But we believe that these fairer and a much more fair global economic systems can actually outweigh these risks that the opposition side will provide. And so our second argument on development over profit. We believe that these current institutions who are Western nominated are profit oriented, meaning that they prioritize profit over development. And so our first layer is that these BRICS institutions can focus on financing these projects that is directed into development and not profit. We believe that when they're prioritizing these development over profit, we can actually bring much more change and development. This means that the impact is that we're focusing on development and we're able to speed up the process and enhance economic growth in various countries and these emerging countries. The opposition side might argue that this might weaken these kinds of existing institutions. So the crucial role of these BRICS institutions is that we can play in promoting sustainable development. We're able to let this be a long-term benefit for the current society. And we emphasize that where these development needs, poverty reduction, and sustainable growth is much more important and much more compelling compared to weakening the existing institutions. And when we're going to focus on these kinds of development over profit, we're actually able to make much more change and bring a much more better economic system for these emerging countries. And so our third argument on reducing dependency on Western models. Our premise is that these Western-centric approach may consider their own interests. they might not be focusing on what these emerging countries need. So as a result, these BRICS countries often need to find themselves into a limited zone, and which is why they should make these kinds of alternatives that actually focuses on these emerging countries and actually provide economic priorities that are focusing on their goals. So the first layer is that these BRICS alternative institutions can have diverse economic models, meaning that they can create policies that better suit themselves compared to these Western countries, which doesn't suit them maybe only a little bit or not at all. So second is that they can reduce these dependencies on these Western countries. Since most of these economic institutions in the current society are Western dominated, they are mostly depending on these Western countries. We believe that the BRICS nations seek to reduce their dependence on these Western financial guidances, these Western economic institutions, which is why BRICS should create alternatives that institutions do not depend on these Western countries. To conclude, what have we brought to you today is that first, we provided you 3 arguments, which is promoting equity, and second, on development over profit, and thirdly, on reducing dependency on Western models. We believe that these BRICS organizations, these BRICS countries, they should create these alternatives to the current international economic institutions and let them be able to work alongside these existing ones. Secondly, they're able to reach their goal of providing needs for these emerging countries. And so the impact of when we're able to create these alternatives is that we're able to reduce these Western dependency. Second, we're able to actually work alongside with them, so we're creating a better world, we're creating a better system, economic system for these emerging countries. And thirdly, we're able to reach a much more fair and equal place for these economic systems to actually happen, proudly proposed.